Hi everybody, I'm Natalie, I'm 55 and I'm documenting my life after a corporate career. So I've moved from a very well paid corporate career in IT, cybersecurity and that entire ecosystem, and I'm starting a minimum wage job this Wednesday for a tourist board here in Northern Ireland. So why the change? Well, it was in some ways forced upon me. I was made redundant last October from my current company, or my previous company, I should say. And that forced some radical decisions from me. The first one was obviously to say, oh my goodness, I've been made redundant, better get a job very, very quickly. But I decided at that point that I would spend a little bit of time abroad, take some of the redundancy and go and have a bit of a holiday, a bit of a decompress. And I would then come back, get the CV done, get out there and really just get back on the treadmill. So I went to Italy, I went to Rome, which is my favorite city. I then went to Palermo for a couple of weeks, just to really decompress. I met a wonderful family out there who ran a beautiful little Airbnb, and they fed me so well. I put on about 10 pounds in the couple of weeks that I was there, which was not great. However, I came back and that was the end of November. And I decided that I would wait until January because it was Christmas was coming, and I figured I was still in that very much I'm on vacation mode versus I am out of a job or unemployed. And because I had a little bit of redundancy, obviously I had a little bit of savings then to enable me to do that. So I figured in my head, January was the start of the new fresh year and I would then get on board with that. So January comes and I get my CV ready and I'm looking up all the companies that, you know, I put go out to my network and everything, and I go to the big companies that I would have previously thought would have no problem hiring me and whatever. Went to all the recruitment companies. I actually started up a limited company for contracting. I figured I didn't want to maybe do permanent all the time. Maybe I would do contracting. And crickets. Absolute crickets. Yes, obviously all the recruitment agencies were like, yeah, let's talk, let's, you know, give me your CV. Yes, let me put it out to here, there and everywhere. And there was nothing. And that was a huge moment for me where I realized, oh my goodness, I had crossed the Rubicon, as it were, from being employable at a high level to being not discarded, but maybe not as wanted, shall we say. I had a pretty good track record. I have a great CV. I have done some great things in my time. And I'm not saying that for any accolades or any, you know, nonsense like that. I'm good at what I do. And so much so that the previous 3 companies or so that I'd worked for had actually poached me to come and work for them. So there's a little bit of hubris, I guess, in there as well, that I was, you know, get the CV out there, get the high paying job again. And I knew I wasn't going to get paid that money again because I was in a different environment. I was looking for jobs more locally in the UK, Europe versus US companies that I'd previously worked for. So I'd set my sights a little bit lower. No. So then I set them a little bit lower. No. And I'm like, what's happening here? So come March, I'm like, there's no contracts, there's no perm work. What am I doing with my life? What am I going to do? So I started modeling, could I or should I retire? Because I had got myself into this position where I was thinking to myself that I'm not going to get a job again. I then got a job in March and it sounded like it was right up my street. it was to provide strategic help to a company that needed to expand out of their single client into more clients. And it sounded like everything that I want, parachuted in, firing all cylinders, getting a strategy together, getting everything ready. The problem was, by this stage, two things were happening. The first thing was the company wasn't really ready for me. They thought they were, but they still had to get so many ducks in a row. And that is no fault of theirs. They were working exceedingly hard. But they just didn't get to the point where, past what I could give them in the first 3 to 4 weeks, there wasn't any execution stage. And so I was basically sitting there doing nothing. The second thing was, I realized my tolerance for that type of work had gone through the floor. So where this time last year, I would have jumped at the chance, get in there, order from chaos, everything that I loved pursuing had disappeared practically overnight. And so I had a conversation with them and I said, look, don't pay me for nothing. Let's call it quits after a month. We've both tried. I don't think this is for me. I don't think you're ready for someone like me yet. So let's not waste time or money on either side. And so I called it quits. And it was in the probation period. And one thing I always think of in a probation period, it's a two-way street. And so I didn't feel as guilty as I probably would have done in the past, saying goodbye, this is not for me. So we're now in April of this year, and it's now June. And I decided that I could take on some consultancy work. I can do some short-term contracting, but really corporate world had died for me in that respect. I was doing a little bit of consulting for a founder in the US. So I'm getting a couple of quid into a limited company. But again, I haven't spent any of that because that is company money and that's going to go straight into my pension whenever I do my company account. And it's buttons anyway. It's not even any money. It's a couple of £100. So I started doing retirement modeling. So I was taking my pension, my savings, and seeing could I live on that from the age of 55, bridge to 67. And then obviously with state pension coming, hopefully, then, I would be able to live on the rest of my pension and state pension for the rest of my life, that kind of thing. So I extensively modeled that, and I came up with a framework, which I'm happy to go into in another video, the specifics of it. But I've created a framework whereby every 6 months I review the market conditions, review the state of my pension, and I have 4 spending tiers that I can move within, from normal to, as lean as you're going to go, my floor, that I can move within. And every 6 months then I would take out whatever that spending level is for that period of time. So the worst comes to the worst, I'm, for any period of time, it's only 6 months, that period that I'm working at that level. So I modeled all that. And again, I can go into that in another video. If you guys want, please comment, like, subscribe, all the bollocks that you do. I watch any of my other videos and I'm a one-take wonder. I have no errors and graces about editing all this. So, like it if you like it, don't if you don't. Come join the parade. So I'm sorry, I'm looking down because I've got a couple of hints and tips and tricks of me own, a couple of notes I wrote down, and then I scribbled all the notes out and started writing on it, and I've probably missed most of the points that I was going to cover. Let me just double check. Yes, the eyes are going now as well. So done all the months of financial modeling. I've got my 4 spending tiers. So in theory, worst comes to the worst, and I'm a contingency planner. That's part of what I did in my corporate world. So kind of bringing a little bit of that to bear into the personal world, which is completely 2 different things, by the way. And I want to talk about that in another video, that transition, that mindset transition as well. Because what works professionally when you start to apply it to yourself, can be a complete nightmare because you're emotionally you're emotionally invested in it versus not being, if you're doing it in a professional way. Anyway, so how did I get to the minimum wage work, you may ask, Natalie? 10 minutes into the video. So I figured, okay, I'm going to retire. I've got nothing else to do. I'm going to retire. But what am I going to do with my time? And I think that was the biggest revelation for me. And I know I've watched all the retirement, retire at 55, you can do it. And I suppose that spurred me on a little bit to be in the position that I'm in. And they always say, retire to something, don't retire from something. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of in that mid zone because it's kind of forced upon me through redundancy. Kind of not ready for it, but I'm in that position. I got to do what I can do. So I've decided to retire, semi-retire, but I've got nothing to fill all my days. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get to 5 o'clock some days and I'm like, where has the day gone? And other times I'm up at 5 a.m. for some reason. And, by 11 o'clock, I've thought, oh my goodness, the day's half over and it's only 11 o'clock, swings and roundabouts. However, I thought, forget about the corporate career. Do something completely left field. I mean, that's how I get out of a lot of scrapes in work professionally. And I mean that in a professional capacity. Sometimes you got to think outside the box, take a chance, take a risk, and go for something. Go the path less traveled, as it were. And professionally, that can get you out of a quagmire, corporate quagmire where people aren't willing to make decisions or there's risks applied. And sometimes you just got to say, look, something, I'm going to travel this path. I'll see how far I can get. If I get there, I'll bring you along with me. If it's a dead end, we'll come back and we'll go another course. And that's how sometimes you just get yourself or get organizations or business teams and whatever out of stagnation. So I thought I'd apply that to myself. We'll go left field. We'll take something completely and utterly novel. So I looked up things like work away and, working in a chalet over the winter months in a ski chalet and all this sort of stuff. And then I was on a local recruitment site and I saw a job for the tourist board to welcome people to Northern Ireland. I thought that sounds fun. It was seasonal, 0-hour contract, minimum wage, pretty much runs just the summer. And, you're talking to people all the time, you're on your feet all the time, and you're welcoming thousands and thousands of people every day. And I thought, you know what? I'm sitting in the house. I've been working from home for 20 odd years, working for US companies. If I never had a reason to leave the house, I would be in the house the whole time. So I figured, why not? What's the worst can happen? I'll go for it. If I don't get it, I don't get it. But it's an interview. If I get an interview, great, whatever. So I went for it. And I enjoyed really talking to the chaps that I was being interviewed by. And I felt that I was answering their questions before they'd asked the questions. Well, I was just talking away to them. And I think that's one of the things. I was excited about the opportunity of doing something so completely new, about talking to people all the time. And I got the job and it was great. So I start on Wednesday as a little shadowing thing. And I'm so looking forward to it. And I get to wear a little uniform, well, not a uniform, but a little coat and whatever. And what's making it exciting? Well, there's two things that are making it exciting. Number one, I've never done something like this before. I mean, I've done minimum wage jobs in my time as, growing up and whatever, but to make a conscious decision to step off the corporate ladder, the corporate treadmill, and do something completely novel that's, hey, it's only for a season, Hopefully it lasts more than that, but you know, that's the breaks right now. There's something very liberating of doing that, but I couldn't do it unless I'd done planning beforehand, where I had been paying into my pension, where I'd been saving some money as well. So I'm not going into this blindly, or, hey, this is the only thing, you know, I desperately need this job. I don't need this job, except in so much as what it's going to give me as a social opportunity, just to talk to people, just to get out there into the world, instead of being in here 24/7. Although, by the way, that's what I've done. I've redone my little jungle and whatever. Again, you do all these little projects when you first, you know, stop working. But very quickly you get through those projects and then you're like, what next? So this video or this series or this channel is changing from what I've been doing for years. And if you're still with me, hi. Give me a heart or something. But this is changing from all my previous ones to being how I'm navigating retirement. And so if there are questions that you have about what is my framework, why do I think I can do this, what I think I'm giving up, what am I trading, because everything's a trade-off. Everything's a trade now between time and money. And am I learning something? Am I giving up something? Am I dumbing down myself? And quite honestly, I've been on AI so much that I really feel like I'm dumbing myself down. And so I'm wanting to break that habit of coming down in the morning, having a coffee, just sitting, typing. And, you know, I'm learning. It's great. It's productive in that respect, because I'm giving myself topics to study and look at. But I'm still sitting there doing what I would say nothing productive. So this series of videos, I hope, is going to be basically me navigating retirement, semi-retirement, finding out, you know, can I work in the summer? Can I work in the winter? Can I work occasionally? Can I make my pension work? Can I make my pension work in different market conditions? And so if that's something that interests you, please do say hi. Please come and join the ride. And I look forward to talking to you all in the comments. Take care, everybody. Bye.